Morning, everybody. I'm Nicola Barrett, Chief Corporate Learning Officer at Emory Executive Education at Goizueta Business School, and it's wonderful to have you attending another Business Over Breakfast. October is homecoming at Emory, and so for the October Business Over Breakfast, we decided to have a couple of our Goizueta alums join us as the hosts for the session. And so today we're proud to welcome Goizueta Executive MBA alum, Dorothéa Bozicolona-Volpe, as our executive practitioner and guest speaker to talk about your brand, more specifically your personal brand and how you build resilience into that. In today's business landscape, it's almost expected that the leaders and executives of the world's top brands all have strong and significant and unique personal brands to differentiate them in the industry. Yet many of us as professionals, executives, and leaders, we struggle with the who, the what, the where, and the how to present ourselves in person and online in the digital landscape. So whether you're a marketing professional, executive, aspiring executive, a student in an organization, who you are matters as much as how you communicate it, regardless of whether you're in a moment of burnout, feeling like an imposter, or managing through a crisis. Dorothéa is the principal and founder of what I find is a intriguing name, founder of Social Espionage. She's lived in 7 countries during her formative years, and that instilled a deep conviction in her that one must be really clear about identity and how you show up in the world. Today, Dorothéa is a strategic digital marketing executive who is fluent in 4 languages and specializes in developing business through digital, influencers, and social media marketing for some of the world's most memorable brands. Before I hand it over to Dorothéa, I do have I do want to point out one of our short courses, partly because I made a decision that my team and I will go through this. So I would love some of you in the our Business Over Breakfast folks to come and join us too. So the Navigating Change for Growth, this is a totally new program. We've revamped it, we've personalized it so that you, your team, come out of that with a playbook for a change initiative that you're going through. So given that change is such a constant in our lives, I've signed up my team for it. So I hope you'll come and take a look at what that program has to offer, because I think it's going to be really exciting. Dorothéa, you have a bunch of skateboards behind you, and I think that's because you are an avid skateboarder. So I'm going to hand it over to you, and you can finish off the introduction and do a better job than I just did.
Oh, I think you did lovely. I really want to say good morning to all of the Business Over Breakfast audience members. And thank you all for answering Nicola Barrett's question at the beginning of where you're all from. I saw somebody from the United States Virgin Islands, so I'm really excited about that. I always start with my name because it's an interesting one. My name is Dorothéa Bozicolona-Volpe. My pronouns are she, her, and please pass the champagne. I want to thank Nicola Barrett and the Business Over Breakfast team, Pam Tipton, Tammy Long, Jennifer Eames. And I really have to put a shout out to Professor Ben Kaczynski, who without him, I wouldn't be here. I'm so humbled and honored to have been invited to share this knowledge with the Emory University Executive Education community. And if any of you are on and you're considering an MBA, Goizueta School of Business is the place to get it for you and your children and your cousins and your brother. And I can't say enough. In a recent op-ed for the New York Times, the United States Surgeon General Vivek Murthy talked a little bit about how social media should really come with a warning label. I'm quoting him when I say the mental health crisis for people is an emergency, and social media has emerged as an important contributor. So I'd like to start, if I could, with a quick mindfulness exercise. A lot of you are probably sitting in a chair. If you're not, I'm encouraging you to do so. Sit with your back and your bummy all the way back to the very back of the chair. Put your left hand on your left thigh, your right hand on your right thigh. And if you can follow me very carefully, breathe in and really kind of pull your tummy to the back of your spine and breathe out. Give me 3 more. Now we're present and we can actually focus on ourselves and the content of this presentation. And at this very moment, someone is thinking of you with love and respect in their hearts. So let's begin. I'm going to share my screen. I've got a kind of a busy desktop because I lead, when I'm not working with Emory, a fairly busy life. So let me see if I can pull from these participants there we go. Play from the current slide. Okay, brilliant. Okay, you should be able to see everything that I'm talking about. And I may go off video for a time. I'm just kind of letting you know that I will do that. I will always be sharing my screen though. Nicola was kind enough to introduce me. You're welcome to follow me on any of the social media channels. I'm an open networker, but I always like to talk about how I became a strategist and how, you know, I am or am not uniquely qualified to teach this course. I am the daughter of two immigrants. My father was a French art professor and working artist in the 70s in New York. And my mother was an Italian model. I always tell people that I am part of the American experiment. And I love, love, love what Lin-Manuel Miranda said in the musical Hamilton. Immigrants, we get the job done. What makes each and every one of us unique is everything we've done from birth to death, right? That really highlights our journey. So my journey actually started in law enforcement. I was a law enforcement strategist working in the Virginia area. You might know this, my old boss, Bob Mueller, the former FBI director. I came to Atlanta, Georgia to work with the GBI on a special assignment. And I met this guy, fell madly in love. He was an entrepreneur and a nightclub owner. His name was George. And after 9 very happy years together, unfortunately, I lost him to cancer. You know, I wrote something in my journal that I always like to share because I think it's very poignant when you think about, you know, loss and how it can change your life. You know, grief carries a place in the heart and it sits there forever. But when focused, it can be a powerful modulator. Sadness can become resolve and pain can really become action. My entire network when I moved to Georgia was my network through my relationship with George. Doors were closing to me, so I had to open new doors. I had to create my own relationship with my community outside of my relationship with George. And I have to say, it wasn't that I wasn't, you know, I did kind of go through a bit of depression in my morning, but I've learned really that you can't fight back. You have to fight forward. And what do I mean by that? I learned the art of psychological and heuristic engagement between people and content when I was in law enforcement. So I ultimately started my own company because they are the tenets of marketing strategy. I've had the wonderful opportunity after I started social espionage in 2004 to work with brands like Coca-Cola, IBM, weather.com, Intercontinental Hotels Group, and the C-suite and also celebrities. So I would talk about, you know, this thing called new media, which ultimately became social media, to anybody who would listen. And I ultimately landed a gig on the Ali Velshi show as a subject matter expert. What I didn't know is that during his shows on CNN, he's now gone on, as you know, from Al Jazeera to MSNBC, and he's written a lovely book. I strongly recommend it. Ali's a great guy. I loved working with him. There was somebody in California that was watching every move, and they were very interested in hiring me to build the personal brand for Ryan Seacrest. I love this picture because this is one of my first days in employ with the company. I'm still wearing the ring that was given to me, my Carpe Diem ring, as you can kind of see there on my hip. You know, I've been with Ryan now since 2004. This year will be 20 years, actually this month. And I've helped him brand himself as the king of pop culture, land on ease on the red carpet. And also, I'm going to move this just for a second because I'm wondering if you guys can see that. There we go. And as we now know, Wheel of Fortune. I don't do a very good job of saying it properly. And it was part of my journey into my expertise that led me to believe that having a strong personal brand, as well as creating a community, would be a path towards success. So at times your content and your posts may be the first glimpse that someone has of what it's like to experience you in business. And I want you to kind of think of yourself as the CEO of you. You are the CEO of you, no matter where you go in life, no matter what it is that you do. Now, I promised that I would do this. One lucky winner will win some time with me. I want to make sure that that you guys can all kind of see this. I'm going to hide the video panel here. There we go. Anything that I say, screenshots that you take in the next 24 hours, one lucky person on this video conference, this webinar, will receive a free hour of my time to go over their social media, personal branding, as well as their personal branding strategy and how they're building resilience in their business. Every post must have these three elements: at social espionage, my name, which I know is not an easy one to spell. And I created a hashtag just for today. Hashtag Emory, B-O-B for business over breakfast _ resilience. So I'm going to give you guys a minute to kind of write that down. Now, I'm going to ask a quick poll question if I can. And I'm going to let the young ladies that are helping me today, Elizabeth and her team, let me know what some of the responses are. And this is just a raise of a hand. How many of you have ever gotten your heart broken, been laid off from a job, experienced a life-altering event like divorce or death? And how many of you have suffered from imposter syndrome or burnout at work? Now, of the 40 or so members in the chat here, I'm going to wait for Elizabeth to pop in and let me know who's responded. Did I get 100% of the hands there, Elizabeth? I'm wondering now if I've lost Elizabeth. Maybe I have. Actually, it's not Elizabeth, it's Jennifer. My apologies. Jennifer, can you let me know how many people have raised their hands?
Pretty much everybody, Dorothea.
Okay, brilliant.
And I raised mine for all of them. Yes,
yeah.
Everybody, it basically.
Yeah, it happens for all of us.
Yes, yep.
Yeah. So we've got a lot to get through today, and I'm going to answer some of those questions as we proceed. I'm going to ask another quick question of the group. What is the thing that you take with you from birth to death? The one thing that you take with you? And Jennifer and Nicola, if you can give me the first person that answers that you see, what is the thing that you take with you from birth to death?
Breath was the first response. Confidence, you, life experiences, spirit, fat, myself, my last name.
Okay.
My mother's advice.
Okay. That's actually good. I'm wondering if that person might be like me and a member of the tribe might be Jewish, because think about it. Your grandmother's and your mother's advice tends to really land. It's actually your name. And I say this because if you think about Halston, right? For those of you who know the case study by Roy Halston, what he really did was he lost his brand. And I've got news for you. Guess what? You already have a brand. It's beyond your CV. It's what you're involved in, the community organizations, maybe your church, the political campaigns that you've donated to, where you live, where you work. It's you. And it's already out there if you're on social media. And I'll tell you now, more than ever, communication has changed. We live in the world of pan communication. And I love this term. And I love this picture because I think it really, really illustrates the point I'm trying to get across. We communicate across so many channels. Our voicemail, right? Our mobile phone, outgoing greeting. When we present to people, trust me, there are people right now on this, going, oh my God, what is she doing wearing a pink, tuxedo jacket? That's so loud, but I wanted to show my little Barbie-con today. We communicate over text messaging, over email, right? And what happens is what we don't realize is that sometimes that right client, that next candidate for our company, that next, maybe even on a dating website, that next individual that you meet, could be the love of your life or the best, employee that you've ever, recruited and retained. People will choose the platform with which they want to communicate with you. And I'm sure I don't need to tell you this because I work with a lot of millennials and zillennials. That's what I call Generation Z. That's my word. So make sure you give me attribution rights. They like to start a conversation in one place, and then maybe the conversation continues in text message, and then it continues over email, and then it goes to your Instagram, DMs or your TikTok DMs. So people will actually choose the communication platform that they want to communicate with you. So it's important that you know who your audience is and who your community is. So think about this as some of you are attempting to take your careers to the next level. We all know that first impressions might perhaps be the most impactful. So what are you saying, right? In personal branding, in life, we all know that you have to know, like, and trust the person. People buy from people, not from companies. It's true. It's all about relationships. So each and every one of you is an ambassador or ambassadress of your company's brand, or for that matter, if you're an entrepreneur, your own company. Each post, each retweet, they still call it that, even though it's X, every share of any content communication to your audiences is how you are judged. So in some cases, your content may be the very first glimpse an audience member has of you, your company, and your brand, right? After all, your actions on and offline are really what brands each of you. So let's talk a little bit about why it matters. Paula Dean, poor dear. Her communications caused her to lose her reputation as a celebrity chef. You know, Shia LaBeouf, he had to actually quit, you know, his all public life because he was involved in a plagiarism scandal. He put his name on somebody else's script. And of course, you know, Harvey Weinstein, the former co-founder of Miramax and Weinstein Company, who kicked off the Me Too movement. And think about this for a moment. After all, wasn't it a strong personal brand that won the United States presidency in 2016? So every one of you has something, even if you're in a very crowded industry, that allows you to stand out. And I love using Lizzo as my example because she truly has embraced who she is. You know, my Nona Volpe, my grandmother Volpe, used to say, people are like art. It's the imperfections that make them beautiful, right? And I do believe that one of the things that she has done is really embrace who she is, her size, her talent. I don't know if any of you know this, but she was the last acolyte of Prince, the famous musical performer and composer, before, you know, he passed away. And I think Lizzo does a really great job of representing her personal brand. And this is what I will say, you know, each of the experiences that you have in life, yeah, again, in your journey from birth to death, really lends itself to the passion you have for your life today. This leads you to stand out. Somebody brilliant once said, you have to stand out in order to be outstanding. So we all know that brands are powerful, right? They're valuable in business. So what is the primary benefit to you to build your own strong personal brand? You know, I think that it's giving more of who you are and what you are and not less. And we're going to explore that today. So what is a brand versus a personal brand? A brand is a perception or emotion maintained by a buyer or a prospective buyer, describing the experience related to doing business with an organization or consuming its products or services. You know, brands are distinctive. They actually, you know, stand out. Brands, you know, I'll give you a quick example. People will spend 18 to 20% more for a brand that they have some kind of relationship with. Coca-Cola spends 55 cents out of every dollar so that if you're thirsty, you know, one of their products, by the way, they distribute Evian, is in arm's length, right? Brands are relevant, you know. What they stand for connects to what someone else considers to be important to them. And also they're consistent. People come to believe in a relationship based on the consistency of the behaviors they experience or observe. And listen, personal branding is nothing new. It was originally introduced in a 1981 book by Al Reyes and Jack Trout-Moore, Positioning the Battle for Your Mind, in chapter 23. Please don't go out and buy the book. I read it for you. It's a crap book, but it does make a very important point in that it introduces personal branding for the first time into the universe's lexicon. And really, it talks about how you can benefit by a positioning strategy to advance your own career and advance yourself in your industry. This is the most quotable thing, so I hope you get it. I'm going to say it twice. Your personal brand is the perception or emotion maintained by somebody other than you that describes the totality of having a relationship with you. Let me repeat that so it really drives home. Your personal brand is the perception or emotion maintained by somebody other than you that describes the total experience of having a relationship with you. Personal branding is a combination of what you're committed to, what you stand for, how to present it to the outside world. It's beyond your social technograph and your digital footprint because it's on and offline. People can't see inside of us. They don't know our values, our mores, our beliefs, our abilities. So it's through those actions that we actually build our personal brand. So think about this. What makes you distinctive? How is your expertise relevant to your organization or industry? And what is the consistent message that you're sending your audiences? I am a big fan of what we now call the reverse elevator pitch. years ago, pages used to jump into the elevator. This gentleman, by the way, lived to be 109. I got to know him working in Hollywood. And the pages would run into the elevator, and they would pitch their idea for a movie to Louis B. Mayer or Samuel Goldwyn. But today, we live in the world of the reverse elevator pitch. After you post something, after I give this presentation, what are they saying about me? What are they saying about you? And I think that it's really important that you think about what you leave behind, right? What is that? Maya Angelou said something so beautiful. People won't remember what you said. They won't remember, what you look like. They're going to remember how you made them feel. How do you make people feel when you interact with them? So think about that as we jump into this case study. Now, I'm going to ask Elizabeth. I'm sorry, I keep calling you Elizabeth. It's Jennifer. My apologies. Jennifer and Nicola, I'm going to ask this question of the crowd. How many of you saw the movie? It was kind of a documentary called Super Size Me.
We've got about 12 raised hands so far.
Okay, so about 10%. Let me kind of educate you. So Super Size Me was an introduction to the world, because it was an internationally released movie, on how Americans were becoming more obese because they were supersizing their meals at fast food locations. We won't name any names, right? So when the fast food person taking the order would say, would you like to supersize that? Morgan Spurlock and his then fiancée, who became his wife during the movie, introduced both obesity and how to combat it, and veganism. His then fiancée and then wife, Alexandra Jameson, who you see here, really introduced veganism during the time frame with which the movie came out in Super Size Me. She's a natural food chef, author, speaker, TV personality, and holistic health counselor. She also appeared with Spurlock on a show on the Learning Channel called 30 Days, in which the pair lived on minimum wage for 30 days in New York City. She's appeared on her own on a number of television shows, Oprah, The Final Word, The National Health Test with Brian Gumbel. And then, of course, as you know, when you're involved with somebody and you're in their business and everything is their brand, obviously Morgan Spurlock was a famous producer. He's no longer with us, rest his soul. In 2011, they divorced. Now, I want you to imagine, what it's like to have to rebuild your brand after you've been married to someone, sired a child, and everything. A little more background on Alex. She graduated from New York's National Gourmet Cookery School, cooked professionally in Milan, Italy, learned how to really cook regional vegan and macrobiotic meals for people who, and very seasonal organic menus, for people who were suffering with real life health issues like cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure, infertility, and food allergies. She returned to New York in 2001. She worked as a pastry chef at a very upscale organic restaurant called Other Foods. And in 2002, who walks in but Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward? I'm not going to ask who knows Paul Newman in the crowd, because I don't want to feel like I'm a dinosaur. But he actually asked her, would you become the nutritionist for my nonprofit? It's called the Hole in the Wall Gang Camp. It's based in Connecticut and other places, cooking food for children with very life-threatening diseases like cancer and lupus and that kind of thing. And she did it. They were so impressed with her food, that she actually, worked with Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward. And while she was originally a vegan, she decided in February of 2013, the year that the two of us were supposed to appear at the World Domination Summit in Portland, Oregon, that on her website, she was no longer following a vegan diet. Now, just to give you some background on Alex, this is somebody who was the godmother of all veganism. She wrote The Great American Detox Diet, Living Vegan for Dummies, Vegan Cooking for Dummies. And when she admitted that she'd been craving and eating animal products for health reasons for several years, but kept it kind of secret due to confusion and guilt, and then wanted to come clean, her community began to troll her. Here you can see the famous vegan, was getting trolled after eating meat after 12 years of veganism. And you can see some of the posts here. They were literally telling her that, she was a threat. She was not realistic, and that they gave her death threats, that she was not authentic. They no longer believed in her. They were upset because they felt that she profited from promoting a wholesome and very compassionate vegan diet. So here we are, losing tens of thousands of her followers. I, at the time, was working with her after the divorce as her community manager and social media marketing and personal branding strategist. And as we were entering into the time to go to the World Domination Summit, she said to me, Dorothéa, my mom is Anna Ruth, Anna Ruth, by the way, was really into organic gardening. She was the OG, for those of you who don't know what that means, the old gangster of organic gardening. And she had her own radio show. Radio was before podcasts, children. Yes, that's right. So that being said, the thing that was really interesting is she said, my mother's suffering from this for the third time, and she really has decided not to take any Western medicine. She's just going to deal with it. So I remember as we were getting on the plane, she said, I'm so happy that you were able to stay with me. And you need to know there's a little bit of a backstory. When they divorced, Morgan approached me and asked me to work with him and said that, she couldn't pay me. So I met her at my favorite steakhouse, as one does with a vegan, Peter Luger's in New York. And on the back of a cocktail napkin, we signed an agreement that I would work for her for free for 3 years, and that I would, size up my hours and what she owed me and so on and so forth. So after all of these death threats, we go out to the World Domination Summit. And shortly thereafter, her mother passed away. So think about this. She's going through a divorce. Her mother passes. I mean, you can conclude that she felt a certain amount of burnout and dealing with depression. So how do you deal with that? I came up with the strategy, right? That it's really important that you have a healthy mindset, right? And we'll get into that strategy in a moment. But your health and building your energy and managing your energy is really the key to avoiding burnout, right? So I said to her, it shouldn't be all or nothing. What I want you to do is take small steps every day. Go for a walk, shut off the computer, call a friend. Community is a great way to deal with depression. They did a lot of studies on people who live in blue zones. And because they're part of a community, they tend to live longer and have happier, more fulfilling lives, right? And it's also important that you spend time with your loved ones, even if it's like this, right? During COVID, a lot of us had to work alone, and we worked and talked over video. And I'll also share this with you about avoiding burnout. Did you know that there are more neurons in your brain than there are stars in the galaxy? Yeah, crazy, I know, but it's true. Your mindset is your superpower. Your mindset can help hinder or, grow your success, right? So studies show that believing in your potential to grow and improve is often the very thing that makes this happen. And this is called a growth mindset. And it's your key to resilience, right? That growth mindset and kind of establishing really good habits. Did you know that when you think about positivity, right? Our brains are wired to focus on the negative first. But with the simple practice of having an open mindset, you can actually repave those pathways to start scanning for the positive to feel happier and less stressed. Having a strong sense of purpose is critical to building resilience. It helps you keep things in perspective, as well as stay positive, connected, and engaged. So I want to talk a little bit about what resilience really is. There are many ways to explain it, but in the world of positive psychology, resilience is being able to recover and adapt quickly from a traumatic event or stressor. In other words, it's kind of an inner strength. Generally, speaking, people consider others to be resilient when they have a consistent positive outlook. They deal with each difficult situation they face with ease, and they don't exhibit negative emotions during extremely difficult times. There's also resilience in the workplace. Resilience in the workplace can help people recover from challenging experiences. COVID, anyone, right? It can also assist in your growth and your development. Data from Harvard shows that those experiencing change also experience growth. So it can be helpful to consider how even physical resilience works. Those of you who work out your muscles, lifting weights to make sure that your muscles work. Well, emotional resilience works the same way. When you practice it, just like working out, it's like you're working out your resilience muscle, and you get stronger every day. So why is resilience important? Given the evolving needs of organizations, growing resilience is really a key strategic priority for most companies. Businesses and the people within them will perform better if they aren't just keeping their heads above water. Opportunities for growth and self-learning, like business over breakfast, that come and change will energize people and organizations. For me, I often tell people it's important to get back to who you are, not pivot, but reimagine, right? You will find that once you unlock your most vulnerable feelings, there will be a community that will form around you, and you'll ultimately feel as though you're not alone. I love the 7 C's of resilience, and you'll have to forgive me. I've had COVID a couple of times, so I'm going to kind of talk about them. There's Dr. Ginsburg, a female doctor of human development expert, proposes that 7 interrelated components that make up resiliency. Competence, the ability to know how to handle stressful situations effectively. It requires having the skills to face challenges and having had the opportunity to practice using these skills. Competence is the belief in one's own abilities that's rooted in competence. People gain confidence by being able to demonstrate their competence in a real situation. Connection, we talked about this. People with close ties to colleagues, connections with friends and family and community groups are likely to have a stronger sense of security and sense of belonging. Just think about being part of the business over breakfast group, right? Or part of the Emory community. You know, what has that done for your own resiliency? Character. People with character enjoy a strong sense of self-worth and confidence. They're in touch with their values and are comfortable sticking to them. And they can demonstrate a caring attitude toward others. Contribution. If people can experience personally contributing to the world, they can learn the powerful lesson that the world is a better place just because they're in it. And coping. People who have a wide repertoire of coping skills, social skills, stress reduction skills, are able to cope more effectively and are better prepared to overcome life's challenges. And finally, control. When people realize that they have control over their decisions and actions, they are more likely to know how to make choices in a way that can bounce back from life's challenges. Now, at this time, I want to share that I wrote a letter to Alexandra. It was just after her mother died. And she actually shared this with me recently, which I thought was so brilliant. I wrote a note that said this: all stories have setbacks, especially when you factor human emotion into the tale. Recovery requires us to meet these emotions head on, to be alive to them, but not controlled by them. It's easier said than done when the emotion you face is one of unbearable circumstances. You know, I use the term I learned to fight forward and not fight back, but I want you to remember something. Things happen for you, not to you. I'm going to say that again. Things happen for you, not to you. So I came up with this idea. Alex, you're going through a very difficult time. You're depressed. Why don't we talk about this? Surely there are other people out there that are suffering, and I want you to vlog about it. You don't need to look beautiful, and it doesn't need to be perfect. Done is better than perfect. I'm now quoting my dear friend Anne Hanley. Yeah. So I said, why don't you start sharing recipes to help people to get over things like depression and burnout, and put a video next to it and tell them how you came up with the recipe. Do you want to know something? We started gaining back new followers. People who never heard of Alex. People who were excited just to connect with her because they were going through something as well. And by sharing her vulnerability, she started growing her community. This, as you can see, is her Facebook, her Instagram, her Pinterest, her Twitter, formerly Twitter, now X. She started a podcast, Her Rules Radio, which has been lovely to be a part of. We landed, she wrote a book called Women, Food, and Desire. We landed in both Health Magazine and both Oprah and Elle.com the same month. Here's Alex's Coach of the Month for Elle. Here's the book, came this close to becoming a New York Times bestseller. And then we landed on the Hoda and Kathy Lee show. Today, the third hour, what have you. And I have to share, Hoda and Kathy Lee are so awesome and cool. They drink wine at 9 o'clock in the morning. I want to have a job where I can drink wine at 9 o'clock in the morning. So if any of you hear of anything out there, do let me know. She came to the back, the backstage and said to me, I have something for you. And this was, of course, 3 years in working together. And she handed me an envelope. And it was a check for every cent that she owed me. I'm so proud of Alex. That being said, she landed on Dr. Oz, on Health Home, and now she's married to Bob. And they write books together, and they travel the world, and they help people have better relationships through tactical empathy. And I cannot be more proud of Alexandra Jameson. So here are some of the things that you need to do with the help of my friend Taylor Swift. I don't know if you can hear this. Are you ready? So we talked about resilience. So that's one. Now we're getting into another. Own your name. It's important that you own your name. Go to domain.com, Bluehost, what have you. I own Dorothéa Bozicolona-Volpe.com, .net, .tv, .media, you name it. Be present and attend events. By just being present today at Business Over Breakfast, you are growing your community. But there are plenty of communities on LinkedIn. There's groups on Quora, on Instagram. You can follow certain hashtags. Listen and learn. I know this is a busy slide, but I'm a big fan of something that my grandfather said when I was a little girl. You have 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. Use them accordingly. I think it's really important to see what people are saying and take the temperature before you chime in, right? And here are some of the places that you can actually do that and some tools you can use to listen. And fourth, create content, right? And not constantly create content, but I believe that, you know, content is not king, okay? The person who said that, if somebody says that to you, please smack them right in the mouth and tell them that's from me. Content is actually queen. Relevancy is king. Make sure that your content is relevant to your audiences, whether you're starting a blog or you're doing a paper.li and kind of wrapping up your life. It's really important. And finally, you know, well, not quite finally, consistency is key, right? So if you set a goal for yourself to make sure that your email is out every Thursday morning at 10 a.m. EST, you know, please, you know, keep that in mind and make sure that you keep up with that, right? And by starting a blog or a podcast, you know, by the way, blogging is like a $4 billion, podcasting, excuse me, now a $4 billion industry. Just wanted to let you know. And consistency is really important because it allows your audience to kind of move more toward you, to pull toward you, consuming your content while simultaneously establishing and reinforcing your credibility as an expert in your field and your personal brand. Also, it's important to have a strategy, right? What is your strategy? Is your strategy that you want to sell more of your services or products? Is it to build yourself up as a chef or nutritionist, a life coach, to create more of a community around yourself so it's easier for you to get warm leads? You know, I'm going to just recap really quickly with these 8 things, actually. You know, it's important that you're mindful, the 7 C's of resilience, owning your name, being present, listening, learning, and consuming, creating content with context and relevancy, being consistent and having a strategy. And I've got one last thing I want to share with you. And I absolutely love this woman because she's an entrepreneur and came out of music. I love what she says about personal branding. Don't wait for other people to validate your dopeness. You know you're dope. They'll catch up. I love her. And I'm going to leave you with one bonus tactic. And I actually started out with it today. The whole part of being part of a community is that you're building your own around you. If you're requoted, if a comment is made on your blog, your Facebook post, your Instagram, or your LinkedIn, whether it's positive or negative, a great deal of brand building comes from being gracious. So thank those people, as I'm thanking you now, for being awesome. Thank you all very much for the generous gift of your time and participation. I saw that there's like 98 people on asking questions, so I'm so excited to take your questions. This is how you can connect with me, and I'm looking forward to chatting with each of you.
So
Jennifer and Nicola, any questions?
We do have some questions. Chandra asks, in thinking about business branding, what are your recommendations for how to listen in the context of social media?
Yes, there are actually listening tools. If you can email me, I'll give you some of my top 3. My email is dorothea@socialespionage.com. Today's talk was really very focused on personal branding. So I'd like to keep to that topic, but I'm happy to respond to that question.
I think Chandra has, a different Chandra, I think, has another question. Can you discuss domain.com a little more and the benefit of paying for that?
Okay, so I use domain.com just as an example. Bluehost also offers you to buy domains. There are several other domain selling sites. What I'll say is that by owning your brand, that allows nobody else to own it, even if you just sit on it, you know? I have a very unusual name. Chandra, I imagine that you might as well. I think that it's important that you own your name as though it belongs to you, because you belong to you. And I said this at the very beginning of my talk. You are the CEO of you. So think of that as you're looking, right? In Alexander Jameson's the case, she's Chef Alex. on a lot of things, but she's also alexandrajameson.com. She owns it. Does that adequately answer your question?
I think so.
Okay.
Thank you. Maureen asks, as a small business owner, constant content creation is exhausting.
I know.
Do you have strategy tips for small business owners?
Yes, I do. The first thing I would ask you to do, Maureen, and I hope I'm addressing you properly, is that it's important that you first get to know the sociotechnography of your audiences. If you are a small business, and let's say you sell cupcakes, I'm being hypothetical here, you're probably going to want to know what other bakeries competition are within your focused area code or zip code, right? But you're also going to want to know, are there schools or local scouts, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and adventure groups and that kind of thing that are maybe in your neck of the woods that could be potential customers? I think it's important that you first focus on the sociotechnography. And if you find out that most of them are on Facebook, that might be where you gear and focus your efforts so that you can build your Facebook following first and then take on something like maybe Instagram or TikTok. And all the while, I will also say it's important that you have a strong email list. You know, start a newsletter if you're a small business, because that's something that you can do on a weekly or bi-weekly basis and connect people from your newsletter to articles that you've posted on that 1 or 2 social media platforms where you know your audience exists. So a little bit of research can go a long way for a strategy. Maureen, did I answer your question properly?
I'll have to wait till she answers, but I think so.
Yeah.
Somebody asks, I am in executive leadership and want to hear your thoughts on TikTok. I have reached out to a marketing person and they say I need to be on it, but I don't feel that is my target market.
Okay, I'm going to say this to an executive leader. My response back to that marketer, and again, I am a marketer, so please understand, I'm not trying to be mean-spirited when I say this, is tell me what of our potential customers are physically on TikTok and send me their profiles. That's how you can get out of being on TikTok.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Tabitha asks, which should come first? Narrowing your focus or identifying your target audience?
And who asked that?
Tabitha.
Tabitha. Tabitha, I would recommend that you do it simultaneously. But the first thing you need to do is take a step back and ask yourself this question: what is my why? Simon Sinek says it best. What's your why? What's the thing that makes you unique in the marketplace? All of us, as I said, have something about us. You know, I did a talk recently to a technology group called CMG. They're great. It's a good number of people who are OGs. They're old timers in the world of software and computing. And a lot of them are just brilliant. They're inventors and what have you. Computer science nerds like myself. And, you know, a lot of them said, you know what, I'm a programmer, I'm a programmer, I'm a programmer, I'm a programmer. You may all be programmers, but your approach to something may be very different, you know?
David Foster asks a question. I share a name with a famous Hollywood producer. He
You
sure
do.
does.
Who is, by
Hollywood...
the way, David Foster has a very hard time keeping a wife. So hopefully you're better in that department.
So Hollywood producer, composer, performer who has a team of lawyers who are very aggressive in policing his brand.
Yeah.
I've attempted to register various versions of my name as a domain only to receive cease and desist notices. Any tips on creating a recognizable name without infringing on a famous brand?
So he's David Foster, the composer, Grammy Award winner, all of that. But you're David Foster, what? If you're a programmer, if you are a marketer, maybe put your title in your name. David Foster, the, you know, doctor or lawyer or professor, right? I will say that it's important that you specifically focus on what it is that you do. If you're in sales, it might be, you know, David Foster, brilliant sales guy. I don't know. But, you know, I'm being a little hypothetical, but David, I would certainly, to differentiate yourself from David Foster, the Grammy Award winning composer and musician, to specifically focus in on your industry. Did I adequately answer that question, Mr. David Foster?
He will have to let me know in the chat.
Okay.
In the meantime, oops, there's things, chat's going crazy here. Tabitha asks, so where is Tabitha? How do I identify my uniqueness? Do you have any tips for those people of us who's like, Yeah, I'm pretty good at being average.
Tabitha, that's a great question. It really is very dependent upon you. There's a couple of things that I can share with you. If you send me an email, I'm happy to respond. But I always respond with, I learned early on, you can kind of see behind me. I don't know if I can do this, but can you guys see all the
We can
skateboards?
see all the
Yeah.
skate.
Yeah,
Yes.
I learned early on that I was a bit of a tomboy. And that's what kind of differentiated me from the other girls in my community growing up all over Europe. And I'll just say that there's got to be something about you that really is outstanding. You just might be a little shy and tapping into it, right? And figuring out what your why is, like, why do you exist? What are you passionate about? It takes a minute, but you'll get there. Any other questions before we wrap up?
Yes, there are. Any thoughts on transitioning from a professional personal brand to being a retiree?
Yes, I call that courting your brand, where on one side you might be, a retiring lawyer, and the other side you might be a baker. I actually worked with somebody in Chicago that her cake pop brand is now part of what these little cake pops that you see at Starbucks. That was her idea. And she ultimately wound up selling her business to Starbucks, and she really doesn't need to work again, but she still loves baking. Former lawyer. What I'll say is that it's really important that when you are sort of slowly but surely moving away from your career, that you communicate that to your community and say, hey, I'm available for volunteerism. I love food, for instance, again, being a little hypothetical with you, or I'm a big fan of working with children. I was a scout leader and would like to continue to do that. By letting your community know, somebody will be looking out for you and saying, hey, I've just read online where somebody's looking for somebody to help them in their kitchens to feed the homeless, and you might enjoy that, right? So hopefully that answers your question.
I'm sure it does. Somebody else asks, can you speak on how you found that first spark of resilience to completely pivot following your personal loss?
I think part of it came from my upbringing. To be, as we say, in Italian, it's called maschiaccia. In French, it's called sheepy. I think in English, the correct translation is tomboy. I just, if any of you are interested, I did a TED talk about it's literally like 12 minutes of that goes over my entire life story. And I'll happily give it to Nicola and the team so they can share it with the business over breakfast community. For me, it was really kind of taking stock of everything that I had with George. And I'm very grateful that now I can talk about him and not necessarily get emotional, because I still do in many cases. But that being said, I really had to dig deep, because I was dealing with the loss of a loved one that I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with. And he died, very suddenly, slipped into a coma and was gone in 24 hours. And when you really love somebody like that, whether it's a grandparent, a partner, a brother or sister, it does rock your world. And you do have to kind of dig deep and understand. And some people, it's their faith that keeps them going. Others, it's their community. And sometimes it's your own personal medal. And I think for me, it was a bit of all three. So I hope I've answered that adequately.
Thank you. Maureen asks, related to the retirement question, would it be detrimental to go on a lengthy social media sabbatical for a reset?
I wouldn't recommend that. No, I wouldn't recommend that. Not at all.
Okay.
It really is important that you remain consistent. So I wouldn't recommend going on a social media sabbatical. I would take people on your journey with you.
Thank you. And one last question. Do you ever suffer from imposter syndrome?
Every single day. Oh my word.
Yes.
I want to find out if anybody is on the talk on the webinar that is Georgia based. If you are, please raise your hand so Nicola can take a quick head count. I'm speaking to Ben Kaczynski's class on November the 4th. Please email me. I'd love to send you an invitation. It's a deeper dive into personal branding, and I'm going to be interviewing one of my clients who's local a former leader and executive at Coca-Cola company, I strongly recommend you come to that. Before I speak, whether it's a webinar or in person, I have to do a little bit of breathing exercises on my own because I get a little nervous. I'm a nervous speaker. I get, what's the word? I guess stage fright would probably be the best word. I understand that Barbara Streisand suffers from it as well. Personally, I think if you don't get a little nervous before you speak, clearly there's something wrong with you. You're probably a sociopath. I don't know. But I strongly believe that, you know, you have to be authentic. You have to share your vulnerabilities because that's how we're all human. That's how we connect. And that's really how I've lived my life. And I'm so incredibly fortunate to have had George in my life at the time that I've had and been born in America. I'm a very proud American citizen. I voted yesterday.
Oh, well done.
Yeah, please vote. Please vote. Our elections here in Georgia, you can early vote for a time before November the 5th comes around. But I would love to host all of you at Professor Ben Kaczynski's Monday evening class on November the 4th, the day before Election Day. So you email me, I'll happily invite you. It's free.
We put the, Jennifer put the information in the chat. So thank you so much, Dorothéa. I'm going to hand over to Tammy. This has been a fascinating morning. Thank you.
Oh, you're quite welcome. And thank you all for the generous gift of your time. I'm really honored to be here.
Thank you. And as we wrap up today's session, we want to thank Dorothéa for sharing her wealth of knowledge and expertise with us today. Dorothéa, I'm going to take the fight forward, not fight back with me. That was my takeaway, my big takeaway as well. And thank you, everyone, for attending today and joining us for Business Over Breakfast. We want to share a few things with you before we wrap up. Upcoming sessions of Business Over Breakfast on November the 7th, Neurodiversity and Inclusion as Game-Changing as AI. November the 21st, AI Transformation and Marketing. So you see a theme here with the AI. December the 5th, Unlocking Intelligence and Wellbeing, a holiday edition. So we hope that you're able to attend, if not all of those sessions, at least one of the next upcoming Business Over Breakfast sessions with us. So we look forward to that. And we also want to share some upcoming courses with you that we have available for you to participate in. We have a Finance and Accounting for Non-Financial Managers course that's taking place on November the 13th and 14th. This is in person. And the course that Nicola mentioned that a lot of our team members are going to be taking, Navigating Change for Growth. That's also in person on November the 19th and the 20th. And Negotiating Strategies for Success on December the 4th and 6th. If you have any questions about these or any other courses, please feel free to reach out to us at the email addresses that are listed below. And again, thank you all for joining us today. We hope you have a great rest of the week and weekend. Take care, and we look forward to seeing you at a future Business Over Breakfast session.